Coming up on 2.5 Geeks, we will be talking about the Surface 2, the Note 3, a gaming machine from Lenovo, and a whole lot more.
It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit. Processing power, I kind of understand this.
Oh, hi. Welcome back to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar alongside Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. How's it going, guys? We've been testing out audio for the whole freaking, 20 minutes. And Marco, apart from being hot audio-wise, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We're recording this the day after Halloween. I had lots of fun with my kids last night. My facial issues are getting a little better, so I'm good.
You're using up all the good luck. Thanks a lot, Marco, you jerk. How are you doing, Marco? Not Marco. I just said Marco again. Dave, I am just out of sorts today, guys.
Eat sack.
It's okay, Ayaz. We still love you. It's Casual Friday.
Wow.
I have facial issues too. I'm unshaven, but you'll survive, and so won't the viewers.
So won't the viewers?
Maybe they will survive. I don't know.
Was that intentional or was that New England coming out there?
That was New England. Sorry.
That's crazy. Okay, let's go to hardware. And I'm already apologizing for the episode. I'm sorry, everybody. This is all my fault. Okay, let's actually talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the content, which is always awesome. Let's talk about Microsoft Surface 2. It's out. It's running Windows RT 8.1, which has some limited functionality. You had your hands on it. What did Hot Hardware find when it came to the Surface 2?
Well, I won't make any apologies for Microsoft for the Surface 2. That's for sure. And limited functionality, I don't know. You know, that's getting a little bit old on me. I mean, yes, it's not full Windows 8. It's running Windows RT 8.1. And we actually just did a preview of it. So actually pulled together a video demo, sort of walk around and guided tour of the device and showed some performance metrics. Just a quick take. Seth Colliner is working on it for us for the full review. So come back to the site and check it out in all its glory, probably next week, which actually by the time you view this video will be this week. But actually, you know, I'm impressed with what Microsoft has put together here. For $449, you get a 32 gig tablet with Windows RT 8.1. You get full Office 2013 RT suite. It has a really nice 1920 by 1080 ClearType HD screen, so nice high resolution screen, and NVIDIA's Tegra 4 under the hood with 2 gig of RAM. So it is snappy. It is well appointed and well built, and we really liked it.
When it came to the design, Microsoft didn't bother to really change anything up, but I do know it's got a brand new kickstand, 2 positions. How is the actual build quality of the device?
The build quality of Surface 2 is excellent. It's actually a little bit thicker, a little bit heftier than most. Has a magnesium alloy frame, I think. And so it's about 1.5 pounds in terms of total weight. But it actually, you know, for me in a 10-inch slate, I think that form factor supports a little bit more heft. I think, you know, you're a little bit less concerned because it's kind of a two-handed device. And, you know, versus a 7-inch slate or something of that nature where you're kind of much more a palmable device, if you will. So this is a larger slate. I think it supports the weight. The build quality is excellent. And the optional type cover 2 is also excellent. The experience you get on the keyboard, whether, you know, just general tactile response or key travel, very comfortable. The touchpad is multi-gesture, supports, you know, all the Windows gestures that come with Windows 8, you know, if you don't want to touch the screen or what have you. And I feel it just works. The kickstand works very well as well. That, you know, yes, it's not redesigned all that much. It's got 1 extra position, but it's an extra bit of viewing angle that if you set the Surface 2 on top of a countertop and you're standing over it, it gives you that tilt up towards your face with an optimal viewing angle if you're standing over the device almost directly. So it's that little bit of extra swing that you need that gets it there. It's also better on your lap that way as well. So, you know, all in all, you know, you also get 200 gigs of SkyDrive storage for 2 years. You get Skype landline and Wi-Fi hotspot access free for a year. And so you really get, a bunch of additional options bundled in for the price, $449 again for that 32 gig variant. If they just threw in the type cover, I think it would have been a slam dunk. I mean, it's really, it offers a lot of functionality and features versus, the iPad. That's the main competitor here. So I liked it. I think Microsoft takes a bit of a bad rap, and I really like Surface 2 quite a bit. And the Surface Pro 2, by the way, a more expensive option, Intel inside, full Haswell processor. Also, nice solution if you have a little bit more money to spend, though.
Yeah, I got to actually try out the Surface 2 myself. They actually upped the resolution on the screen. It's really improved when it comes to that look. Very pretty. I think it's a 1080p panel. Marco, you got any impressions of the Surface 2?
Yeah, I agree with Dave on every single point. The hardware is beautiful. Everything about it's improved over the original. My problem with Surface 2 is with Windows RT. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I could see why you'd want a stripped down OS. It's sort of acting like a bridge between Windows Phone and Windows. It's that middle ground where it's running an ARM processor, but it's full Windows. But with processors like Intel's Bay Trail, you can have full app compatibility in the same form factor with similar battery life. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Windows RT. But the device itself is nice. If you're looking for a tablet and all you're going to do is Office and the web, it's awesome. So don't let anybody scare you off and say, oh, it doesn't run all your Windows apps. Yeah, as long as you know that going in, and you know that Office, Outlook, and the web is enough for you, I think people would love Surface RT if they gave it a shot.
What on RT in the App Store what's limiting about RT to you that would make you say that?
That you can't run the millions of x86 apps that work on Windows now. I don't know. It's kind of a big deal.
No, that's a big deal, and I guess what I was getting at is, for a tablet experience and what you get on Microsoft Store these days, I think it accommodates a large swath of the market. I mean, when you talk about Surface 2, it's really made for consumption. It's really made for, it's not a production necessarily or a content creation sort of vehicle. Although I agree with you in general, and in more in the vein of, we've seen other tablets from guys like Asus, for example, that put together a Bay Trail variant as well. We looked at the Transformer T100 TA, Transformer Book T100 TA from Asus, and I think theirs was $349. Doesn't have the build quality of Surface 2, it just doesn't. It's nice, but it's just not the same. For $349, you get full Windows 8, but it's Bay Trail driven. The flip side of that is Tegra 4 with NVIDIA. Okay, NVIDIA's Tegra 4 processor is faster for gaming in general versus Bay Trail, but that's kind of the only edge that you have with that solution. So yeah, it's a toss up. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Let me before we move on, I want to pose a question on this whole thing to Dave, just to see the response. So in terms of gaming, you're probably right. The GPU on Tegra 4 is better, but for the games that you can get through the Windows Store, I don't think any user would see a difference. If you had a choice between two identical physically pieces of hardware, one with Tegra, one with Bay Trail, one got 10 hours battery life, one gets 8, but the one that gets 8 hours of battery life has no compromise in terms of apps, which one would you pick?
You mean the Windows RT tablet or the Windows 8.1 full tablet?
Yeah, if you had two Surface devices to choose from that looked and acted identical, had the same exact accessories, two Surface 2s, one had Tegra 4, one had Bay Trail, what would you pick?
And again, that's with the premise that one only runs RT and the other one runs the full operating system.
Right. Exactly.
I would pick the Bay Trail tablet.
That's the point I'm making. Like, it just makes more sense to have the Bay Trail version.
Yeah, it's x86 compatibility.
I own the original Surface, and I actually really like it. And I think Surface 2 is better, and it's really nice. It just, I don't understand why Microsoft didn't just make a Bay Trail version.
Well, and I would offer that it's you know, it's Windows RT and ARM versus, Wintel, Microsoft, and Intel x86 code compatibility. Microsoft, I will tell you the goal, but that's as it exists today. The goal for Microsoft is to have one unified Windows store with apps that work cross-platform. I think it's going to be a while before they get there, but as it exists today, yeah, I can't deny that choice decision that you just challenged me with. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, Windows and ARM, that original concept seemed really interesting because there's so many manufacturers making ARM devices, lots of tablets. The idea of simply, hey, wait a second, if you make a tablet that runs Android, you can just put Windows RT on this. It's supposed to change a lot of things. That didn't really seem to happen because the licensing costs were very expensive. That's one of the reasons why RT not so successful. And the idea of, what do you mean it doesn't run the other apps? That confuses people. I think the naming convention is actually the problem. But let's move on to another device running on an ARM processor, but not confusing as much as it used to be. It's the Note 3. I remember the first time the Note came out, we're all like, are you kidding with this thing? It's a monstrous phone. Is it a tablet? What is this? And it was a wild success to the point where there is a third version now. And Marco, you got the scoop on that.
I do. I actually have it right here, but like a meatball, I forgot to charge it before we started the show, so I can't turn it on.
Meatball, yo.
So yeah, here's the Note 3. Absolutely awesome device. As you mentioned, the original Note, I was one of the people that looked at that thing and said, "Wow, that thing is huge. You look crazy holding it to your head." And I have done a complete 180, and it happened after I reviewed the Note 2. I just, when I review something, I like to use it in my daily life for a little while. So I got so used to the Note 2 that every other phone looks too small, didn't compare. I kept coming back to the Note 2 even after getting newer devices. And the Note 3, it's not a home run, but it's an awesome device. So it's essentially the same size as the Note 2. It's 5.95 inches by 3.12 inches, and it's only 0.3 inches thick, and it's only 5.93 ounces. It's running Android 4.3, has a super fast quad-core 2.3 gigahertz Snapdragon 800 processor inside, 3 gigs of RAM, which is more than any other device, any other smartphone that I've seen, huge 32 milliamp hour battery, LTE support, every basically Wi-Fi standard, Bluetooth, you name it, this phone has it. The screen is a Super AMOLED screen, Samsung Super AMOLED. I wish I could show you how bright and how saturated it is, but forgot to charge it. So overall, I think Samsung did a ton of good with this phone. Great component choices. The software is as new as it can get, although I guess KitKat came out yesterday with the Nexus 5, so it's almost as new as you can get. TouchWiz is even more tamed. There's minimal bloatware on the phone. Just the overall build quality is where I have just a few questions.
All right, so then I believe that Samsung tried to take on the slippery back of the Galaxy series when it comes to their devices. I think the Note itself has a faux leather backing. Is that right?
Yes and no. So it's faux leather only in that it's textured like leather. It's not fake leather on top of plastic. It's not something stitched on top of the plastic. It's just a piece of composite plastic material with a stitch and leather imprint on it. It is definitely less slippery. It feels, if you drop the older Samsung devices, you probably wouldn't drop this. It's definitely got more friction. So in terms of that, it's probably an improvement, even though it's not exactly ideal. What I didn't like, it's probably not going to come across on the webcam, but Samsung has this rim that runs right along the edge of the phone and sort of wraps around to the front of the screen, and it looks metal or it looks metallic, but it's actually plastic. And even though I treated the phone with kit gloves, this particular one has dents in it already, and I'm wondering how long it's going to hold up if somebody keeps it in their pocket and there's change in their pocket or keys or what have you. So it feels like a premium device when you grab it and you use it, and everything about it is great. I'm wondering how people are going to feel about it in 6 months after they've beat it up for a while.
That is definitely a frequent complaint about Samsung devices, is that they're slippery. Build quality is a little bit questionable, considering that these are premium phones going up against HTC One. It's going up against the iPhone and everything, even the Nexus 5 at this point. They have some decent build quality when it comes to those devices. The S series, I have my Galaxy S3 over here. You guys can't see this yet, but I had this for literally 25 hours after I changed out the display, which had smashed because I dropped it off a roller coaster. So that's okay. That's acceptable. I understand why it broke. I dropped it from a height of about 3 feet in my driveway. So my new screen got cracked, and I was just like, how is it so? How lucky am I that I get to break 2 S3s? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, it should not be as slippery as it is. I wish that all Samsung phones had that idea of, don't let it fall out of your hands unless they want you to buy more S devices. But anyway, that's my own personal story. Nowhere near as bad as your dinged up Note 3. But I hate my phone. I'm so upset.
It's not dinged up. I'm just wondering how it's going to hold up in the long run. Now, with all that said, my favorite device, and it will be my daily driver. So, just pointing out minor things.
Wait, you're going to use that day in, day out?
Hell yeah!
That's too damn big.
You got some big pockets.
Everything on me is big.
If we titled episodes based on things we say, I think that'd be the title, but we don't do that on the show. Well, let's keep talking about phones, right? We got this Project Ara thing that came out, or at least this from Motorola. It's this idea of basically like a Lego phone. You'd have all these components on the back of it. You could have a different Wi-Fi module. You'd be able to swap out these pieces. I don't understand what exactly was announced this week. It's like, here's a concept. Is there backing behind this? Is Motorola putting money into this? What's going on with this?
I think it's a feasibility study more than anything for Motorola. It was, the phone blocks sort of initiative, which was started by a sort of a user group, enthusiast, sort of championing the cause of modular, upgradable phones, smartphones. Motorola picked up on that. They obviously liked the idea, and they came out with something, of a similar concept that they are, performing essentially, again, a feasibility study on, and then seeing if they can drive to bring the concept into reality. And I wanted to kick it around today because I think it's interesting. I think, as computing enthusiasts, PC enthusiasts, originally, we've all here at Hot Hardware, we've, built our own computers, and we've been living the modular component life for a long time now, where you're pulling graphics cards and upgrading them, pulling CPUs, pulling memory drives, what have you. And so this brings that same concept to the smartphone. And I think it's interesting. I think the phone blocks concept, where you see these big chunks of sort of like Legos that snap in the new camera or a new processor unit, or, what have you. Even the screen was modular. Is a little too simplified. But I think somebody like Motorola, with the design chops that they have, could potentially pull something off that provides at least some level of modularity and upgradability for a phone for future, upgrades. Maybe the screen stays that way for forever. And, a 5-inch screen with 1080p resolution, you're probably not going to need to upgrade that. But hey, wouldn't it be nice if there's a new processor module that comes along and you upgrade your processor, you add some additional RAM? Those kinds of things might be possible. What do you guys think?
I just don't think it's going to work from a design standpoint, and the amount of time it's going to take to create the modules and have them, I guess, fit in. Let's just assume that you can actually have a device and you have competing manufacturers having competing modules. Let's imagine that. So, like what happened with PCs actually happened to phones, where you have a standardized interface for each thing. Imagine that, which I don't think could ever happen at this point with proprietary connectors and all that kind of thing. If that happens, it would take so long to get these components out to a point where they're stable, where you can put them on this device, that they're going to lag behind the all-in-one units, is my idea of this. So you're going to have this. You could have the one that you build yourself. It's going to be large, it's going to be chunky, and it's also going to be slower than the other thing you could get because it's all integrated in one package. But I could be totally wrong. because this is just my guess. What do you think, Marco?
Well, my mom always told me, if you don't have anything nice to say about something, don't say anything at all. No, it's from a geek standpoint. My inner geek would love something like that if I could interchange components on a phone. I think at some point, when the form factor gets small enough, people stop caring about upgrades. Like big PCs, guys love to upgrade their PCs. But for a while, OEMs were pushing like the DIY laptops, and nobody cared. Like I don't think anybody cared because the sleeker, all-in-one, more highly integrated solutions were ultimately nicer. And I think that would sort of translate to phones as well. I agree with you, Ayaz, that they would lag behind the all-in-one, more highly integrated products. The sleeker, nicer, purpose-built products are probably going to be what consumers want.
I'd offer two alternatives to that opinion, I guess, or at least a couple. And I agree with you in general. I think number one, as you talked about, a competitive marketplace where a phone-based core system would have a standardized interfaces, and you could plug in competitive processors or something like that. I don't think you're going to see Motorola, obviously, driving to that ecosystem or that sort of model, I guess. Excuse the terminology there, but I think within a manufacturer, there's a potential, or maybe a perceived potential anyways, where they would sell you an aftermarket upgrade module for something. And what comes to mind are the simple things like you would see in a laptop, where maybe you want to upgrade your storage, and these days you get an SD card, but maybe instead of that you have a direct interface storage option versus an SD card or micro SD card, and the same goes with memory. And maybe you've got an install base of 1 or 2 gig of RAM, but if you plug in another 2 gig module somewhere in the side, you could perhaps improve your experience a little bit with that. So those kind of things. I don't know. I think Motorola is just spitballing it right now, and it was interesting to see them come out with that. I was like, wow. Somebody actually picked up on that thing.
Yeah, but everybody wants to, or at least the companies push the idea of, thinner, faster, smaller, or like just, even if it's a larger screen, it's thinner than it used to be, or it got less bezel. So once you start adding these parts on it, you're building up this larger device, which for the most part for phones, I think this has been disliked by the public. They don't want a big, bulky device. That's why they've gotten so thin with these phones. But the idea of having a little add-on unit to make an S3 and S4 would be pretty cool, right? That, or make an iPhone 4 into a 4S. You just pop something through the 30-pin connector and it sits piggyback, kind of like a Sega 32X. You remember that from Mega Drive? They just put it in another console, basically in the console, and that kind of worked. I just don't see it. That's going to work in pockets. I could see it can work in massive desktops, but I would love it, by the way. I agree with Marco and you, Dave. Like, I would love this as a nerd, but, like, I don't know if it would work as a thing. Because Bug Labs, have you ever heard of Bug Labs? They do a very similar thing. A modular piece of open source hardware that you can add components to, GPS components, Wi-Fi components, and make all kinds of things. It's not necessarily a phone, but you can do this. Not wildly successful, even though it's a really cool, nerdy product.
Just one other thing that this doesn't really take into consideration. Historically, the trend is to bring more and more functionality onto the CPU or the SoC. So it's entirely feasible that in a few years, a cell phone will literally be a single chip that connects to a power source and connects to a phone sensor and outputs to a screen. That's not how it is now. Now there's all these DSPs and separate memory, yada yada yada, separate radios. It's entirely possible that all that's going to be consolidated onto a single chip at some point. And then it's like, what are you going to upgrade? Just the screen, or maybe the battery? Who knows? So that's something else to consider.
That's a really nifty idea. Just pop out one thing. But anyway, let's talk about. There's a very large gaming device from Lenovo. It's called, or gaming computer called the Erazer or Razer. Because it's got a Z in it. It's not a racer, but it looks like the word eraser. I'm assuming this is large enough that you could switch out components. because it looks gigantic. I looked at the images of this device, Dave. It looked like Optimus Prime's foot to me. It's a heck of a design. Could you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, it's not as huge. Optimus Prime. It's not as huge perhaps as the image looks. It's specifically 24 inches by 10.5 inches by 20 inches. It's heavy as all get out. It's 61 pounds. So it's no joke. But what's interesting, or what was interesting to us when we took this one on, was that here you've got a mainstream manufacturer like a Lenovo building essentially a PC from the boutique builder model. In other words, you've got a premium case here. You've got modular components inside that are higher end. You've got a water-cooled processor. You've got a product that caters to the gamer niche, and again, similar to perhaps maybe the main Gears and those folks, Falcon Northwest. What you get with a mainstream manufacturer is obviously access to economies of scale and volume buys. And now you've got an Intel Core i7-3820 quad-core, 3.6 gigahertz quad-core based machine with 12 gig of RAM retailing for $16.99, whereas some of the higher-end systems from a main Gear or something like that would go for much more. It's got an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660 graphics card, Intel X700 chipset, and 128 gig M-SATA solid-state drive, mated to a Seagate Barracuda 1 terabyte hard drive, caching that hard drive, DVD burner, and all the way down the line, 625 watt power supply, and an overclocking button, a one push overclocking button where you can overclock the processor just by pressing an external button. So pretty interesting setup. We liked it. Looking inside the chassis, build quality, cable routing and tie off and neatness isn't even close to like a main Gear or any of those boutique guys. It has a much more mainstream system feel where it's just tied together with a couple zip ties and away you go. But for the money, not bad. We think they probably should have sent us in a system with a little bit higher end graphics card, because as a result, it didn't quite score. It was a mainstream graphics card, a GeForce GTX 660, sort of a mid-range, lower end mid-range card. Didn't quite score with some of the heavy hitting gaming rigs that we've tested, but overall, a good value for the money.
So with this entry, I'm not even aware of Lenovo having a gaming past. Is this one of the newer things that they're doing? And if so, do you really think they're going to be able to compete against Dell's Alienware or main Gear or any of these just powerhouses in gaming? I think, yeah, and you brought up another manufacturer there that I left out of the equation, Dell's Alienware division. Alienware, obviously acquired by Dell a long time ago, and caters specifically again to that gamer niche, and again more higher end boutique sort of feel and build quality with those types of products. This sort of straddles the line. I think you would see this system at a Best Buy, and yeah, you're talking about a price point that again strikes the balance. I think would attract some of the more mainstream buyers that are looking for a gaming rig, and it sort of looks the part as well. So I think there's a market there. I think they could compete. I think there's a little bit of an upsell for the mainstream computer, but you could see Billy walking around Best Buy, little Billy, and he wants a gaming PC, and mom and dad say, well, look at this one. It's not as expensive as that $4,000, Alienware or main Gear rig. So, I don't know. We liked it. We think, if you take the time to dial in that config again in terms of components, maybe a little bit higher end, current generation, GeForce 7 series graphics card. Maybe instead of the 1 terabyte hard drive, you put a small hard drive in, or
you keep the 1 terabyte hard drive, and instead of that cache drive, you put a full SSD in there and get some real performance on your OS drive. So those kind of trade-offs might have scored it a little bit higher for us in the benchmarks, and probably for gamers out there as well.
So it's competent, but not thrilling. That actually sounds like Lenovo. So,
Boy, you boiled that down to like 3 words. I'm trying to create conversation here, buddy.
well, no, I was just thinking about the new line of graphics cards from AMD. I know that Marco was out in Hawaii, checking out and hula-ing all over Hawaii. But there's actually a review now of the AMD Radeon R9 290X, which I'm sure would make a heck of a graphics card in a gaming PC. What do you got, Marco?
I have this right here. That is a 290X. Let me give everybody a quick little tour. That's the front. That is the back. You see no crossfire connectors. There's power connectors. There's the outputs. Come by the site for many more pictures if you want to get a really close look at that. But yeah, so the 290X has arrived. We completed testing. We put it through its paces. And AMD has an awesome part on their hands. So just some quick specs. We'll rattle those off to get them out of the way. The GPU at the heart of the 290X has 2,816 stream processors. There is 4 gigs of GDDR5 memory on the card, running at a data rate of 5 gigabits per second. Requires one 6-pin, one 8-pin power connector, PCI Express 3.0 X16 slot, like every other standard graphics card. 2-slot solution, but the AMD has optimized the shroud, like one of the complaints with 7000 series cards, where if you place 2 right next to each other in a crossfire config, so little air could get in between that the top card would get blisteringly hot. So it's not a huge change, but there are actually ridges kind of in the fan shroud here that run directly to the fan. There's also some on the back, along with a couple of intake holes here. So when 2 cards are next to each other, more air can get to the top card and keep it running cooler. Now, overall, performance was really stellar, especially considering the price. So the 290X is not cheap. It's a $550 graphics card. It's definitely for extreme gamers. But for that price, it outpaced the GeForce GTX 780 and traded victories with the $1,000 GeForce GTX Titan. So AMD has done a really good job with this chip.
So what makes this chip that much better than the old one? Because, I mean, this was a big event. This is a big new set of graphics cards because of Hawaii. What's special about this?
So it's special because AMD really beefed up the core GPU. There's more stream processors, more geometry throughput, more pixel output capabilities. Everything about the card is improved. More memory bandwidth, 512-bit memory interface. So basically everything about the card is improved over the previous gen. They've also incorporated new power tune technology that allows the card to ramp to higher clock speeds and drop down to lower clock speeds faster to maximize performance while minimizing noise. It's not a quiet card. It has 2 modes, so I should explain this. There's a BIOS switch on the card, and by default, it's in quiet mode, which basically limits the fan to spin up no higher than 40% its max speed. There's also an Uber mode switch. So if you move the switch to Uber mode, the fan can spin up to 55%, and because that cooler can now wick away more heat from the GPU, PowerTune will allow it to stay at higher clocks longer, which will improve performance a few percentage points, but at the cost of some additional noise. Now, overall, when you put that whole package together, a much more powerful GPU with newer technologies that allow it to run faster longer, you end up with a higher performance part all around. That's the gist of it.
So, but you said it actually was trading victories with a $1,000 card at some point?
Yeah, so the GeForce GTX Titan, NVIDIA's current flagship, though that's going to change fairly quickly. The GeForce GTX Titan is a $1,000 graphics card. It's NVIDIA's fastest single GPU, and the 290X will trade victories with it. It's not a clean sweep. The Titan does win some tests, but the 290X does very, very well. The one thing to point out, though, both cards are super fast, but the Titan is quieter, uses less power. I think it's also even cooler looking. Like the industrial design of the Titan is nicer. So there are things that would sort of entice people to a Titan, or maybe the 780 is probably the better comparison. The 780 has dropped in price, but has a lot of those advantages that the Titan has. It's quieter, uses less power, it looks better. So AMD has done lots of good with this new GPU. It's just not the slam dunk home run where there's no other reason to buy a competing part from NVIDIA.
Well, it sounds like generally a winner then. If you can get two of them for a price, you get two of them instead of a $1,000 Titan. If you wanted to mess with that. Also, when it came to the design, I didn't even think about that actually being about air and movement of air. It almost looked like, oh, they're going to make it look really cool when it's in my PC. I'm never going to see it. But now I know what that's for.
Did you catch the little hint he dropped there about for now the Titan is their flagship?
I did not catch that. You got good ears.
There's always another one coming.
What's in that box over there? Oh, you'll know a few days after this podcast is on.
Check out Hot Hardware, baby.
Let's talk about a contest that wrapped up the NVIDIA Super Spooky Shield giveaway. That was it actually haunted? What the thing you gave away?
Say that 5 times fast, I dare you. It wasn't haunted. It's well, unless you put a scary game on there, like what is it, Dead or Alive 2 or something that came out. With N3V Games and our friends from NVIDIA, yes, we wrapped that up at the end of the month. Yeah, Dead on Arrival 2. Excuse me, that's the title. Let me get that right. Shame on me. We wrapped that up last night. Was the last day to get in, and so we will be picking a lucky winner over the weekend. Today being Friday, and by the time you watch this, it will be time to announce. And we will be announcing that winner shortly.
So you watching right now may have already won, and you don't even know it.
That's it. The NVIDIA Shield Android gaming handheld device with Tegra 4 on board. And Google Play gift cards all around, baby. For even for runner-up and the second runner-up, they're going to be getting a little Google Play love.
I somehow have memorized it. So we got it's an NVIDIA Shield with a $50 Google Play card for the winner. The runners-up get $25 Google Play cards. Why do I know this? I have no idea. It's almost like I'm paying attention.
Because we told you.
That could be it. And now you guys know, and you probably already won. So if you're already a winner, congratulations. And if you lost, don't worry. Hot Hardware runs tons of contests all the time. It gives you all kinds of cool stuff. And how can you find this stuff out beyond this podcast? HotHardware.com. By the way, that's the place where we took all our stories from, if you didn't realize that. We just scoured the website because, these guys run it, and we're like, hey, this is interesting. We should talk about it. HotHardware.com for everything we talked about. And if you're like, hey, I want to go around the web, and you're really sick of me saying this by now, so I'll say it again, you can go around the web and find Hot Hardware content everywhere. But let's focus on a couple. With videos, if you like videos, youtube.com/hothardwarevids. If you like Twitter, twitter.com/hothardware. If you're on the Facebook, actually not the kids anymore, I guess as the older people are now. If you're on the Facebook, facebook.com/hothardware. If you're on Google+, do a search for Hot Hardware, because you got the vanity URL yet?
I hear they're starting to hand them out.
They're rolling them out. There might be a plus Hot Hardware at some point. Good luck with
that. Baby.
So Google, if you're listening, let's hook these guys up. Let's hook it up. It'd be awesome.
But yes, follow us and add us and
circle us,
like us and all that stuff. And click subscribe on wherever the button is here on YouTube.
The red button. Hit the red button for subscribe. Hit the like button over there. All that kind of stuff. Any final words before we let the audience go?
Yeah, I just realized something throughout this podcast. With half my face paralyzed, I am using my hands to talk a whole lot more. It's really pulling the Italian out of me.
I was going to say, you're even more Italian than you usually are.
Yeah, it's weird.
So
bada bang.
And thanks for stopping by. Bada bing, and thanks.